Hi there, I'm Sherry Rothwell, and welcome to this training on the dream design process. So, this training is all about how do you go from an idea or a dream and actually manifest it to fruition. And what's really cool about this training is not just the linear path of the dream design process that helps you put everything in place that would need to be to create a foundation for your dreams to come true, but also there's a rhythm inside of how to actually implement everything that I'm going to share with you today using the moon cycles. And also, there is a piece of this that's the microcosm and macrocosm, where we see how things are created in nature in terms of how plants grow. And we can use that as a metaphor to help us to make sure that we're putting the laying the ground, the foundation. Here's my cat Daisy, as per usual. It's basically a metaphor that, like, planting a garden is a metaphor, literally, for how we need to create our dreams. And unfortunately, what happens for most of us, if we're not conscious about this, or we haven't done a lot of study into how to consciously create our reality, is we have ideas of things we want to accomplish in our life, but we don't actually take the steps that follow that idea. So, for example, you might notice that at New Year, you feel that's a time of the year to start thinking about how you'd like your life to change, how you'd like things to be better. And people make New Year's resolutions, but then there's no path to follow to actually bring those intentions or dreams to fruition. So in this training, I'm going to share a process with you. This comes from my program called the Dream Design Tribe. And if you want to know more about that, I posted the link underneath this video. So this is basically the outline or foundation that we go deeply into each part in the Dream Design Tribe. So if you want to learn more, you can click through to that page and learn how you can get the additional 52 plus trainings to keep you motivated and on track with your dreams and help you go deeply into these aspects of the dream design process. I don't know why I can't speak today. Okay, so let's begin with the first step on the path. When we have a desire in our lives, it usually comes from being driven towards alleviating some sort of pain in our life, or on the opposite side of things, to attain some sort of pleasure that we would like to experience, that we feel is missing from our life. So, we can kind of get caught up in this idea of, like, it's not good to desire things, or that, we should just not feel bad. We should push down those feelings and just suck it up and accept life as it is. And really, that's not very productive, and it doesn't allow you to fulfill your human desire and intention and expression on this planet, which is to really enjoy and savor and really get conscious about what you want to create and create it, rather than just unconsciously letting things happen, right? So that's what being a conscious creator is about, is really isolating what needs to shift in your life. So and that usually the getting of that comes through some sort of pain, right? Like, something is not as good as it could be in your life. And out of that discomfort, that desire is created, which then calls you to have a dream. And if you have a dream, you have to actually take it out of your head and bring it into reality, and actually design a plan moving forward to implement what needs to happen to make that dream come true. Okay, so I just realized that my computer is not plugged in here. So one sec, I want to make sure. I only have 63% battery. Not that I expect this to be like that long, but you never know, right? So I'm just going to plug that in. So consider, like, some of you might be watching this and already have some dreams, right, that you want to create in your life. Some things you want to create more of for the purpose of having more joy and pleasure in life. Or maybe you're going through some sort of transition in your life where you're experiencing a pain and a struggle, and you want to get beyond that. So that's the first step, is identifying what the dream is. So if you don't have a dream yet, you can start by looking at the pain aspects of your life, right? Like, that alone has like a strong purpose, right? It's just like in your body, when something isn't right in your body, it gives you a symptom, a physical symptom of pain to say, oh, things are not right. Things could be better. We could be healthier. Your emotions are the same way, right? When you have negative emotions, it's telling you something isn't right. It needs to be changed in terms of your whole entire life, not just one thing. So we're here on this planet to create a life that's pleasurable in every single day, and that we feel like we're on purpose. Not that there won't be hardship or things, sometimes difficult, but, finding that joy and pleasure in the process, right? Because how you create something, like the mood with which you create something, or the feelings that you have while you're creating something, actually infuse your results with that feeling as well. So we want to make sure that we're just as much about process as we are about getting an outcome. So the dream design is all about the process, okay? So when you realize that there's something you want to move towards in your life, either through a pain or a pleasure, the first thing you have to do is raise your standards, right? Like you have to be willing to not put up with that thing anymore. That's not working for you. That's causing you pain. Or if there's a pleasure or something that you want to step into, you're going to have to elevate yourself and raise your standards to be a different version of you that actually naturally creates that in their life, right? So you're going to have to elevate yourself in some way. So the first step is a process of looking at every single thing in your life, everywhere, in all aspects, and look at how do I need to raise my standards in all these areas of my life? And that's something that we do in the Dream Design Tribe program. If you're just watching now, then it's in the link there. You can click below or this will be eventually posted on the sales page for the Dream Design Tribe. So if you're there right now, then you can just look down and see the details of what's in this program. But that's one of the trainings that we focus on initially, to give you a context and an actual journal exercise to help you think of the different areas of your life and actually like print that up, take it to a coffee shop and do the work. Okay, so you have to look and see what do you need to stop putting up with in your life, and what do you need to elevate in your environment and also inside of yourself, your own personality traits to be that person. Okay, so you need to start acting from that person, not the person that is in pain or is in dreamland wanting pleasure but not actually stepping into that self. So you need to act from that new person that you need to be to manifest the dream. So you'll do that by raising your standards, okay? The next thing is making a decision, right? Like hell or high water, I'm going to do what it takes to shift and transform this thing in my life, okay? Unfortunately, most people don't get much past the recognition that something isn't right, or they skip steps, right? You might go straight to visioning and then leave it there, and that's it, right? We do live in a physical world, right? So there will be things that you have to actually do in the world of matter to make something happen. Now, you don't need to know the how necessarily, but you need to take action when the doors are open, right? So this is stuff we go into great detail about in the Dream Design Tribe program. So, how you have to take this concept of decide. Okay, so decide means to cut off from. So you have to decide to cut off from the old you, the one that is creating the life that you're currently living and that is not satisfying to you, or that is leaving something to be desired for you. You have to decide to cut off from that. So of course, the raising of your standards is part of that process, but you want to take it to an even deeper level by burning some ships. Okay, so what is burning ships mean? There are some things that you need to literally completely cut yourself off from. Okay, so burning the ship means you can't get back on the ship. Okay, so, it might be, maybe you need to change your job or something like that. You're going to have to quit, right? Like quitting would be burning the ships. Okay. This can manifest differently in all areas of your life, depending on what your goal is. So you want to ask yourself, like, what do I need to do to solidify this commitment? Okay. Another thing would be like, say, for example, if you wanted to lose weight, what you might do is you might publicly declare that you're starting a diet and fitness program and literally post your experience on Facebook or YouTube, right? Like that would be a way of burning the ships. Okay, there's no going back. There's that community accountability, right? That really helps. Okay, so the next part is now really strongly creating a vision of what you want to create. So a lot of times we don't take that idea and really break it down into the specifics. So we really want to know all the details about what it is that you want to create. You have to basically get a clear picture in your mind of what it is so that your subconscious mind on autopilot can actually orient you to that thing. If you're vague about what you want to create, then you're not going to create something that has much substance. Or maybe it has a part of what you wanted, but not the whole thing because you weren't clear enough. So you want to spend some time visioning, going into as much detail about that thing. Like, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What sounds are there when you're experiencing it? What are the smells? What are the tastes? Okay. What are you seeing when you're there inside of this new place that you are manifesting moving forward? Okay, so I'm going to be going back in terms of telling you about the metaphor of the garden for creating this, but I just want to stop for a second and go to the metaphor. Now, why this is so important is like nature, there's a microcosm, macrocosm thing that goes on. So nature gives us a blueprint for how things work, like along with natural law. So if you want to plant a garden and you don't decide which plants you're going to plant, and you don't get like a seed for a specific thing, if you just plant a whole bunch of seeds, like random seeds, you're not going to get what you're in particular were thinking, the kind of garden that you wish you would have had, right? Like you might get it and go, oh, I don't like this. This is not what I wanted. But you actually didn't conscientiously go and get the right seeds and plant them, right? So if I plant a carrot seed, I'm not going to get broccoli, right? It's like, it's just nature. There's a divine design within each seed that we plant. So we have to be really specific. So that's where the visioning comes in, okay? So once you have a clear picture of what it is that you desire to create, now comes the planning, right? This is a thing, again, some people are planners, some people are not. Some people are planners and not executors, right? We all have our different areas where we excel at things. Some of us have trouble with coming up with the idea or making the plan, but we're good at executing someone else's vision, right? So, you may have, you may be working in a partnership on a vision, and, your role might be more of the person who's tending the garden, maybe not exactly planting the seed, okay? But you can partly, participate in that version. You just may play a different role in it. But when you're manifesting for yourself, and you're not working with another person, you're going to have to be the visioner and the executor. And some of that will be opening doors, right? And walking through them. So you can get help, right? If you're the vision person, you find you have visions, but you have a hard time executing, then you want to see that your vision includes doors being opened and people supporting you and helping you, right? Because essentially, like, you don't have to work as hard as you think you have to make things happen. You don't want to push and shove. You want to actually attract situations that catalyze quick transformation. And suddenly, like, doors are opening that you would have never dreamed of.
Okay. So let's move on. To the next one. So the planning.
So you want to write down basically your plan of what it should look like and what steps you think that you might need to put into place. Like, what's your next step? Okay, you might have a long-term vision, etc., but also be open to that plan changing because, like I said, it might happen more easily than you imagine. Okay, like recently, I had an experience. Well, it's not just recently. This seems to happen every single time I move, and I move a lot, so I get to rewire my brain for this to be like for my brain. You have something called a reticular activating system that looks for evidence that you're right, okay, and what you believe in. So I believe that I manifest places to live easily. So that always happens no matter where I live, right? So for example, right now I live in Kelowna, BC, And most people that you talk to here talk about, oh, there's a shortage of housing and everything is so expensive. And oh my God, if you have animals, forget it. Da, da, da. This is the conversation that goes on out there. I just believe that I will find a place. Okay. And I don't listen to that. And in fact, if people talk like that around me, I try to stay away from people like that, to be honest with you, because it's really important not to surround yourself with people that are planting seeds of doubt in your mind, right? So like literally every time I move, it's like every time if I go and look on like Kijiji or one of these things, I will, that looking and not seeing what I find within me is a feeling of lack coming up. And I'll start to feel bad. Like I'll feel negative emotions, stress and anxiety. And so then I know I'm not supposed to be looking right now. And I will not look, I will not look, I will not look. And it'll be like, oh, you need to move in like a month and 3 weeks. And I'm still not looking. Okay. And some of the people around me are going, have you found a place yet? Are you looking? Are you out house hunting? Are you da-da-da-da, right? And I'm just like, I instinctively know that I'm not to be doing that. I'm not to be putting my energy there. And then boom, I'll just get an intuitive hit, go here, go there, boom, something will be there. I'll contact the person. They'll, I'll go and see it that day or, that week, and they'll just get the feeling that I'm the right person, and it just works out. Okay. Like it's not even difficult. Okay. With cats, kids, and roommate. Okay. Not like the easiest situation, right? Like it would seem like, oh, how are you going to do that? Like, how are you going to get a space that's a match for those things, and the budget and everything, right? So just works. I believe it works. It works. Okay. So that is like basically what I'm trying to say is don't worry about the how. Okay. Just get clear on the specifics of what you desire, and wait and let the doors open. And again, inside the Dream Design program, I have trainings that help you live from that state of faith in the process, and reminding you to not get mired down in the how. Okay, but you still do need to have a plan. Okay, you're going to rework the plan. That's totally fine. But you need to have it down. Okay, and what the steps are. And then the next part of it is, okay, here is where people often stop. Because again, like I said, a lot of people are planners, but they don't organize themselves. Okay. They don't actually take the time to organize for the purpose of executing. Okay. So it's like, woo, the visioning, that's fun. Oh, the planning, that's fun. But oh, the execution, that's the work, right? So the next step is to get organized. So what do you need to put in place to make that possible? Okay, so for example, do you live in a certain environment that would support you to stay organized, to get organized and stay organized? Or are you totally overwhelmed and surrounded by clutter, and there's too much going on and you don't feel supported and blah, 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 okay? Those would be things that you would now look at, okay, what needs to be organized and put in place for me to actually be able to execute this? Okay, so one of the ways of looking at that is not just what to be put in place, but what do you want to eliminate from your environment, whether that's people, places, things, right? So that's the second aspect of the counterpart of that is, so what do you need to put in place? What do you need to eliminate? Okay. So that I call dropping what drains. So what is in your life that's draining you, that's literally sucking your energy dry and distracting you? Those are the things you need to go into deeply and systematically eliminate all those things from your life. Okay. Now, what comes after that in the process is establishing a rhythm and ritual in your life designed to support you to manifest this goal. Okay. Because you're going to have to continually organize and reorganize, and you're going to continually have to look at what's working, what's not working for me, and what's a drain, and what do I need to delegate, and all these things. These are things you have to keep looking at. So you want to create a rhythm and a ritual in your life of constantly evaluating your progress and restructuring things. Okay. So that is the next step, which is evaluate. Okay, are the rhythms and rituals that you've created, are they working, or do you need to shift them in some way so that you can stay organized and keep eliminating creating that vacuum, right? Because you want something to come in, well, you have to make space for it, right? So you have to keep doing that in your life. And that in itself is a relief for most people, right? So the next part of it is simplifying, right? So that's bringing it down to the basic necessities. You may have heard that when people execute things in their life, out of all the things that they do, 20% of what they do produces 80% of the results, right? And then we're doing all this 80% that only is producing 20%. So how can you simplify things and do more of the 20% that produces 80% of the results? Okay, and finally is manifest, right? So at some point in this process, you're going to actually manifest your dreams. And it's a work in progress as well, right? Because in order to manifest, you have to receive, right? Got this like hair thing going on here that's distracting me. You're going to have to like really receive it, right? And open to receiving. And, because sometimes we get really mired down again in the result instead of the process, and we find we get the results, we don't really know how to receive it. And we find that we got somewhere, but we're not happy when we get there, right? So that's why, we want to find that way of experiencing joy now in the process of creating your dreams, right? All the way through the beginning. So how can you make all these things fun in your life? I find them fun, right? Like this is not work to me. This is like a process that I love to do over and over and over again. And it sort of happened intuitively in my life. And this is why I'm giving it to you as a template to help you to make sure that you put these things in place in your life to manifest your dreams as a template. So for those of you who are interested in getting my support to do this and learning more and going deeply into all these topics, there is a template inside the Dream Design Tribe for exactly what I just shared with you so that you can refer back to all these steps in order. And, what are the different things that you can do to get organized, for example, or how do you plan all these things? How do you drop what drains? How do you increase your standards, etc.? It's all in that course. All right. So I said in the beginning of this training that I was going to share with you how this coincides with the metaphor of a garden to help you remember it. And then how it actually also coincides with the moon cycle. And that helps you manage your energy in the process of creating a dream, right? Because sometimes we put too much energy into something. We're pushing, shoving, pushing, and trying to make it happen. And what ends up happening is we feel burnt out. So then again, that's another reason why when you get to the harvest of that dream, you might feel like it wasn't worth it, right? Or you don't feel satisfied by it. So the whole process of looking at things in this way and tending your dreams is, it's a journey. And it gives you that purpose in every single day, right? Like you literally, gotta get this cat off me. It's too hot here. I'm so sorry, princess. You gotta go down. Okay. How we manage our energy is there's a time for everything and everything in its time. So before we get into that, and that's what we're doing, use the moon cycles for in the program, is to manage our energy and to help us consistently go back into, instead of moving in time in a linear fashion, we move in a circular fashion. And especially that creation process, and especially being feminine, you might resonate a lot more with managing your time in tune with the moon cycles versus that linear, long to-do list that never ends. That is sort of that Western masculine perspective that we've all been raised in that doesn't support all of us. Okay, so in your life, as you are growing and transforming, okay, you are literally everything that you want to create in your life. You can think of as a garden. Okay, so let's look at what you have to do to create a garden, right? So ideally, before you start your garden, you have to do things like till the soil or turn the soil over, right? It's actually better for the soil when you do that than like rotor till it or whatever. And then you want to fertilize that soil with compost. Okay. So I look at the compost as, taking something that has expired in your life, that's no longer of service to you or your well-being or anyone else's well-being. It's not working anymore. As bringing it to be composted, right? So it's turning your pains into gains, essentially, right? It's like compost, it's yucky. Like if you go in and look at the compost as you're throwing all this food that didn't get eaten, it's like rotting and it's gross and it stinks, right? And a lot of times when we're in a challenging time in our life, that's how it feels. It's rotten, it stinks, and it looks disgusting and it feels bad, right? So we want to, fully utilize that as an opportunity to transform our lives. So we compost it by like digesting our feelings around it, right? By emotional releasing, by finding the gift in it, by changing the story of what it means for our future. These are things that are part of that composting of what's not working anymore in our life. Now, that's creating fertile soil for the next phase of our life, right? Because we've learned something, we're growing from it. And it's going to serve us in the future. The knowledge and wisdom that we gain from those hard times now becomes a foundation to elevate ourselves, right? So you can think of with the garden, you have to prepare the soil, right? So you're not just going to throw some seeds on top of this unprepared soil, right? Sometimes that's what we do in our life, and we wonder why it doesn't, our dreams don't grow. We're not willing to do the inner work. We're not willing to do the emotional work. We're not willing to go deep. We want to pretend we don't have bad feelings. We want to pretend everything's perfect and put on a happy face. But, you could you have a pile of shit in front of you and you put a bouquet of roses in it. It still smells like shit, right? So just really acknowledging that there are things in our life that don't serve us anymore, and we don't have to minimize that. We don't have to act like things are okay with us when they're not. We just really have to deeply dive into them and release the emotion around it and get the lesson, okay? And then that becomes that foundation for the new garden that we're creating and planting new seeds in. So in the Dream Design Tribe, we do go into certain ways of bringing up those emotions and letting them go and digesting our emotions. Okay, so we've got the compost. So we've laid that foundation by our experience in life that's grown us. Now we have to plant a seed, right? So we have to carefully choose. Well, what do we want to put in this garden? Which seeds do we want in there, right? So we plant seeds that are a specific match to what it is that we want to create. Okay. Now, to me, the planning is the sunshine, right? It's the plan that we establish, okay, for what we want to create. And, it's pretty, once you put the plan in place, yeah, you'll have to put some maybe some of the steps will change, but the ultimate plan, if you've really done clear visioning, it's going to stay pretty static. Okay. The sun, it shines most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't, and I'm talking about the growing season. But for the most part, you have no control over the sun, right? Again, you don't have control over the plan either. Either way, you don't really. You have control over what you do in response to the doors that open. Okay, so you put the plan in place, but you literally just be with the process. Some days the sun is shining, some days it's not. But be willing to take action when the sun is shining and the doors open, right? Be also willing to take action when the sun isn't shining, when you don't feel like it, right? When it's dark and cloudy and a door opens, you still need to walk through it, whether you feel like it or not. Okay, then there is the get organized step. This is where you're fertilizing. Okay, you're fertilizing your dream, right? You're giving it more nutrients. You're getting everything ready so that it can thrive, right? If you start taking action without organizing, you're doing a whole bunch of random things, you're not necessarily giving it what it needs, right? So organizing is so essential. Just constantly coming back to the plan and looking at where the space is going to be for the certain things that need to be implemented. And looking around and seeing what might be in the way, right? So for example, what in the garden would be in the way would be weeds, right? So you pull out the weeds, right? So that they're not competing with your plant for sunshine or for, nutrients from the soil, right? Or sometimes sunshine, right? Because the weeds can block the sunshine if they're, going on top of your plant. So that is going to be something that you continually have to keep going back to, right? So you'll go constantly back using your rhythms and rituals, okay? You will, which basically water the plant, right? Because if you don't go in and actually water the plants, then they die, right? So your rituals and rhythms that you create around what needs to happen for your dream to come to fruition, you've organized these, you have to sit down and organize and create rhythms and rituals, but then you put them in place, okay? That's like watering it. That has to actually happen pretty consistently. You don't just water it in the beginning and go, oh, well, I watered it when I planted it. I don't understand why it's thirsty and not growing, right? It's because you have to, in a rhythmical way, come back to the reorganization and also come back to pulling weeds on a consistent basis. Okay, so you want to make sure there's rhythm and ritual that is the backbone of the stuff that you need to do to tend to your garden. Okay, so that's what all this is. So you want to be evaluating all the time, right? And then continually simplifying things in the garden, right? Like you may, for example, put mulch down in between your plants so that less weeds come up, okay? Constant revision, restructuring, and evaluating whether what you're doing is working or not, just like a garden. This is exactly the same thing. And of course, at the end is harvest, right? So do you have a plan for the harvest? How are you going to celebrate your accomplishments? How are you going to receive the benefit of this? How is it going to make you feel? How are you going to give back once you've manifested your dreams? Okay. Like with the harvest, for example, you could do all this and produce a big garden, but if you don't actually plan for the harvest, you don't have time for it or energy for it, or a plan for what you're going to do with the results, right? Like, are you going to can it? Are you going to ferment? Are you going to dry it? Are you going to smoke it, right? Like, what are you going to do with it? Okay, you want to have a plan for that dream, right? That's what's going to make it like nourishment to your soul. That you take those results and see them create more abundance in your life. Okay, so there's the garden metaphor that you can use, right? To just keep like asking yourself, where are you in the process with your dream? And are you forgetting any of the steps if you're struggling to accomplish what you desire in life, or you're struggling to overcome problems? Okay, now here's the cyclic part that is super empowering, that helps you manage your energy so that you enjoy the entire process and don't burn yourself out with overwhelm while you're creating a dream or while you're changing yourself or transforming yourself or your life. So every single month we go through the moon cycles. We have the waning moon, the new moon, the waxing moon, and the full moon. Most people are familiar with the waning moon and the full moon. But we're familiar with what they look like, right? Because we go and we have a walk at night and we can see them, right? The full moon is very full and the new moon is very dark, to the point where when it's a real, like the full, like the actual new moon, we don't see the moon in the sky. It's dark, right? And then it grows back up to the full moon and then it goes down, right? So as humans, our energy actually fluctuates with this, right? During the dark time of the month, it's more of a time to go in, right? In the light time of the month, it's more of a celebratory high energy time of the month. And, if your menstrual cycle is out of balance, you might find yourself not exactly energized at the full moon, especially if you're bleeding with it. And that's something that I go more into the program as well. So when you're out of balance with the moon cycles, then you have to sort of go between following the structure of the external environment and how it's affecting your energy, plus what's going on inside of you, and work to bring your body back into balance internally, your hormones, your reproductive system, and then you'll start bleeding with the new moon, and then you'll be at that place of visioning while you're menstruating. And that's extremely powerful. So that's something we talk more about in the Dream Design Tribe. So we have how I connect it together is the waning moon cycle is all the time where you recognize what's no longer serving. Okay, so the moon has already, or imagine that, so the waning cycle is past the full moon. Okay, so it's the time of the month where we clear things. We get things out of our life that don't serve. And it's a time of, looking at what needs to shift and what needs to change and facing it. Okay, and dealing with it. So it's recognizing your pain. Okay, it's recognizing what's not working for you. And now out of that, knowing what you want to create. It is raising your standards. Okay, so, making decisions, confronting issues, okay, burning ships. Okay. The reason why you're going to do this energy-wise at that time of the month is because the energy is receding for creation. It's about compost. It's going to support you to release things that no longer serve. Okay. And it makes space in the new moon period for you to now not be bringing the past into the present, because you're supposed to be visioning at this time of the month. That's what the energy supports. It supports you to now start from a fresh canvas, being your foundation of soil in the garden that you have put in place by doing all that inner work and that composting. Now you have the space. You've created that vacuum for what you want to come in, right? So you're not drained by all these thoughts and ideas of what you need to do and it's not done. And so-and-so, it's, some energy vampire in your life that you haven't dealt with and they're constantly stealing your energy. If you face that acutely, that chronic stress of that person or that experience, acutely, if you go through the acute discomfort of that, you get to relieve a total chronic stress in your life and you get to get your energy back and build your energy, right? So you go into the new moon period and this is the time for visioning. So you literally you have that space. You're like, right? You feel so much better. It's like cleaning house or clearing clutter. And that's another thing you can do at that time of the month. The energy will support that. So now you have the space to do things like journaling and visioning, talking things through with your girlfriends, just really taking the time to formulate a vision of how you want the next moon cycle to be, okay, or whatever it is that you're creating. So you plant the seeds, right, in the new moon cycle. Then you have the waxing moon. This is when the moon is growing bigger and the energy is building. Okay? So this is this is the perfect time for planning, right? You got the energy again. You've already visioned. Now it's like, let's create the plan, right? So this is like the sun is shining down on you. People tend to have more energy at this point. Okay? The full moon is the time to execute things, right? So this is where we have the getting organized, any of the big stuff that needs to be executed in your life. This is the perfect time to do it because you have the energy for it, okay? And then what happens after the full moon? Well, we go back into the waxing moon again, the waning moon again, okay? So now the energy is starting to recede. It's time to go back and look at, we're back at the waning moon, drop what drains, right? We're back at that place where we're looking at what weeds need to be pulled, okay? So this is happening in a cycle. And then again, we have another new moon that comes after the waxing moon. So again, it's perfect time for evaluating what's working, what's not working, right? So then you can create a new vision or a new aspect to the vision that's going to work better for you that you've discovered in the process of working your plan, okay? Sometimes we don't know the particulars that we would need to specify more until we get there and realize, that's not working, right? So then the waxing moon is about simplifying. So again, you go back and look at the structures that you have in place. And is it, the rhythm and the ritual, is it too complicated? Do you need to, cut things back? How can you just keep things as simple as possible? Okay. That's again, the tending of the garden, right? In the waxing moon time, as the energy is growing throughout the month, right? So this happens on a monthly basis. So each week has a different energy inside of each moon cycle. And then finally, again, the full moon is the harvest, right? So we have, that's the manifestation of the dream. So again, whatever last things that you really need to to get that, that oomph, right? To take things to the finish line. Again, having that scheduled in the full moon time will have you have more energy so that you can actually bring the manifestation to completion. All right. So there we have it. That is the dream design process in a nutshell. It incorporates a linear path to all the things that you want to put in place, but it has that, it follows the metaphor of a garden so that it's easy for you to just intuit what you need to do to keep your tending your garden and keeping it healthy. And then also includes the moon cycle as a seasonal or a cyclic way of constantly evaluating and restructuring and going back to the path, right? Because it's not linear. It means it has to be, you do it in a circle, right? You keep coming back to things. It's like an in breath and an out breath to this process that helps you not get overwhelmed, helps you not be tired. It helps build your energy so that when you get to the manifestation, you have that sense of happiness and energy to enjoy what you've created. So thank you so much for watching, and I welcome you to check below the video and learn more about the Dream Design Tribe and all the trainings that are included to support you to implement what you learned today on this training. All right, thanks for watching. Bye for now.